Saturday, March 28th, 2026. Today is the third National No Kings Day protest here in America. So I wanted to take you behind the scenes of what it looks like working as a photojournalist here in New York City, seeing what this event is actually like. Today is supposed to have a very big turnout. I'm going to be discussing things that happened at the protest, my mindset while shooting them as it relates to photojournalism, and breaking down what I do during my time covering major events like this. Hi, my name is Jared Thomas Tape. I'm a social documentary photographer and educator here in New York City, and you're watching my YouTube channel. Across my social media platforms, I've created 6 different segments, all of which pertain to certain aspects within the medium of photography. Crafting a photograph, life through the lens, marks of the maker, the creative connection, tools of the trade, and field notes. Today's lesson is taken from my segment Field Notes. This segment is more so a visual diary and archive of the moments in which I go out shooting, not necessarily portraying just to photojournalism, but as you'll see later on in the video, extra time that I spend shooting for my book here in New York City that I've been working on the last 5 years. It's really just sort of a visual diary. Now, since the inception of No Kings, the first one in October of 2025, the second one being February 2026, and now this third one in March 2026, I've covered all 3. I'd like to make a disclaimer before we start that I am not of the mindset that photojournalists should be silent about what they are documenting. Obviously, there has to be a level of objectivity, and the way that I feel about things has never deterred me from being able to make photographs that best represent the things going on in front of me and the events that are taking place. But I am not of the mindset that just because I am objective in the ways that I shoot and am able to represent what's going on means that I should be silent about my own personal ethics and beliefs. And I think that that's personally something that has undermined the way that photojournalism has operated for many years before this. You can call me Gen Z, you can call me whatever you like, but I know that there is no real neutrality when it comes to photojournalism or taking photographs in general. It's one of the first things that you learn when you read books like On Photography by Susan Sontag. And it's something that I have come to realize throughout my journey as a photographer, that no photograph is truly neutral. Every photographer, no matter what way that they lean politically, are always going to have their own biases and their own opinions on things. I am just of a generation that believes that there is no need for me to be quiet about them, even though I am able to do the job that I need to do. So, let that be known. Saturday started off much earlier than the time that the protest started because I've been mentoring a 13-year-old kid in photography since January 14th. I've been teaching him about photography, the history of photography, and he has interest in becoming a street photographer. And I've been exposing him to what street photography really looks like and the ways in which street photographers think, walk through the city, and the things that we should be perceptive of. So before the protest actually kicked off, 2 hours prior, I was teaching a 13-year-old kid how to do street photography. Our session ended at 1:30 and the protest was set to kick off at 2. In my last episode of Field Notes, I talked about the importance of arriving places early when it comes to being prepared as a photojournalist, and today was not any different. Luckily, the protest was happening on 7th Ave and Broadway and started on Central Park South. So I spent the time with the kid walking around Times Square, 5th Ave, 6th Ave, and Central Park. During that time period, we talked about photography, we popped off some shots, and we were able to walk the entirety of 5th Ave down to Bryant Park and then end back over at Times Square. I made the conscious decision to do this because I, almost selfishly, wanted to cover my bases of all of the streets that we were going to be walking later, or that I was going to be walking later when photographing the protest. It just so happens that Times Square and 6th Ave and 5th Ave and all of the Midtown area is a perfect place to introduce people to street photography. After our session, I dropped him back off at Times Square and then made my way back up 7th Ave all the way to Central Park South to see the start of the protest happening. Now, In the last episode again of Field Notes, I talked a lot about preparation, and that was one of the things that I really honed in on when it came to the lessons that I was trying to teach that episode. If there's a lesson for this video that I want to try and get across to new photojournalists, it's this. You have to be willing and able to adapt to any situation that comes your way. And the reason why I think it's so important is because, as you'll see, this protest was massive. When I arrived at Central Park South, the crowd had already swelled so large to where there was virtually no room for people to walk on the sidewalks and on the roads. Everything was incredibly packed. There were signs everywhere. Any point of entry, you had to go through people. Not to mention, as soon as I got there was already about 50 other press photographers all waiting in line in front of the protest, getting photographs of Robert De Niro that was in attendance and all of the signs in the front where the march was going to begin. Now, this is just one example of why I think it's so important that you have to be able to adapt in situations like this as a new photojournalist, because a lot of new photojournalists that I've met stayed within that first initial position. Photojournalists abroad have very different things that they're all very good at. Some photojournalists are really good at getting the entire scene. And again, this comes back down to one of my other videos that I made about photojournalism and the framework of EDFAT. You can view it here. Basically, it's just a framework that helps you get a complete story of what's going on. I know where my strengths lie as a photographer, as a photojournalist, and I know that it does not lie in the grander scale version of photographs that you see of these protests. I knew that my vantage point on the ground was probably not going to be anywhere near as good as photojournalists that were up high in buildings, that were able to see just how immense this crowd was. And I knew that I wasn't interested in taking photographs of all of the signs in front. So I took the time while the march was still dormant to sort of infiltrate the street and weasel my way through people, looking for moments in which I found more interesting than people waiting to start the march. It was within these moments that I got my first photographs of the day.
No case! Come here! No ice! No war! No case! No war! No peace!
You did? Yeah. I feel like I haven't seen it forever.
I wasn't just gonna wait around and wait for this thing to kick off, because as I came to find out later, there was about 350,000 people that attended this No King's Day event. And there was no way that I was just gonna photograph the most prominent pieces of the march. So I kind of weaseled my way through people at the start of the march and tried to find moments that I thought were compelling enough. And I walked back and forth between the start of the march that hadn't kicked off yet in Central Park South about 4 or 5 times, hitting both corners and both sides of the street. And before I knew it, it was 2 o'clock and the march had began. Now, when the march began, it was kind of like all out chaos, because usually the only people allowed in front of the marches on the street are press. And there was an incredible amount of press photographers there as is, but just the sheer amount of people that attended this thing complicated the flow of the march when it first kicked off. There were people everywhere on the sidewalks that were supporters. There were pedestrians that had their vacations ruined because they had no idea that this was going to be going on. It was kind of like all out fish out of the barrel type deal. And the organizers of this event, for some reason this time, I think that they were just trying to get things up and rolling, but they were really pushing against the press photographers being there at the start. It was kind of crazy. There were people, like I said, just slamming into one another, people spilling over onto the sidewalks and into off streets and everything like that. I knew that I wasn't going to get anywhere yet again.
Racist hate! Who can't hide? We charge you with genocide! And DHS! Who can't hide? We charge you with genocide! Racist politicians! Who can't hide? We charge you with genocide! These racist cops! Who can't hide? We charge you with genocide!
There was no way possible that I was going to get into the sea of press photographers already being pushed back against from organizers in order to get a shot of this march starting. And again, which I didn't really have that much interest in anyways. So I knew that the route was from Central Park South to 34th Street. So I ended up going to, I want to say it might have been 50th. And I just walked. I walked my way down 7th Ave until I got to a certain point. And at that point, I was already feeling very overwhelmed. I can't lie. I had been overstimulated from earlier that day, working with the kid, constantly being on edge around him, making sure that he's okay and everything like that, into this massive swell of people that I couldn't navigate the ways that I would typically navigate the past 2 No King's Day events, which was a much different tactic than the way that I photographed and documented this event, because even though these past 2 events have had about 100,000 people, I still had room to breathe, and I was able to go on the sidelines and sidewalks. Here, it was extremely hard to do that. As I walked down 7th Ave, I kind of dipped off onto the sidewalk for a little bit to try and get a perspective coming down 7th Ave from the perspective of the people that were on the sidelines, and I ended up getting a few good shots there. But for the most part, the sidewalks were just too filled, and I wasn't able to get anything that I would have been able to get at these past No King's Day protests. But instead of relying on those types of tactics that I used in the past, I adapted and I was just like, if I'm overwhelmed, that's what I need to be photographing. That sense of overwhelming pressure and the amount of bodies within this moment need to be able to be conveyed from the photographs. So like I said, I walked down to about 50th and I just planted myself in the middle of the street. And I waited for the march to catch up and stayed there for about 30 minutes, 40 minutes.
Thank you, sir.
I felt much more in my element here. I felt like I was able to have a better sense of control because I could dictate what I was looking at all times. I had people to the right of me, people to the left of me, people behind me, and people coming straight at me. And it's very important as a photojournalist to also be aware of where your body is in relation to the people around you, because you shouldn't be there to be disruptive. Luckily for me, I'm agile, man. I'm doing the salsa in between people, you know what I'm saying? People are coming to me left and right. I'm ducking and diving and weaving and bobbing all around them, staying within the same sort of circle within the center of the march the entire time. And I think what this was able to do was make me more in tune with the people going on within the march, and I was able to convey a sense of just how close these people were together. And I could cherry pick moments in which I thought best represented, you know, what that actually felt like, and the idea of just how many people were in attendance. This also kind of ties back to how I view things as a street photographer a little bit. The idea that I've been teaching the kid that I've been mentoring recently is fishing. If you are unfamiliar with fishing, it's basically, instead of walking around everywhere and, you know, finding moments and searching for things that are going on, you park it and you sit at one place for however long you want, and you just let the world come to you, and you be perceptive, and you look for emotion, and you look for gestures. And it's something that I've used in my career as a street photographer now for quite some time. I learned it from Joel Meyerowitz, who would do the same thing, sitting at one of the corners on 5th Ave or 6th Ave or Madison or whatever, and sit there and just watch people, because you get so in tune with the world around you, and you get in tune with the energy and the people. Throughout all 3 No King's Day protests, the energy at these things have been electric. You can feel it. There is a sense of camaraderie and support and love. And despite what so many people are saying about this most recent No King's Day protest. I've been switched. I used to believe that a lot of these major peaceful protests and everything did absolutely nothing, and in many ways they felt like parades. But I've recently been swayed because during these difficult times, people need to know that they have people that support them and care about them. And it's a way, even if it's not gonna fix everything right now, it's still a way to show not only the people that we know, but people across the world that, you know, we don't agree with a lot of the things going on here in America right now. Not only that, but a lot of these are created through organizations that do more than just create peaceful protests after the fact, and they introduce people to these organizations, and people can get involved in their local communities that actually do make change in different severities and different levels. There's a lot of discourse happening currently about how these things do nothing, and up until maybe about 3 months ago, I kind of believed the same thing. I was like, these are just like parades. In actuality, they do introduce people to a organization that is doing things to help change legislation and getting involved in your city council to have your voice actually be heard. And there are people out there that don't really know how to get involved, and so this is their introduction into that. I'm not going to sit here and cherry pick whether or not something is more effective for our voice to be heard over another if the same basis of what we're trying to accomplish is being advanced. And so I had a much different mindset about this demonstration than I have in the past. But the thing that hasn't changed was the energy. And you can really feel that, as, at least for me, I'm very susceptible to feeling that sort of stuff. So I felt that. Being in the middle of the crowd and changing my approach allowed me to get different results than I would normally get photographing something this large.
Nice collection.
Thank you so much.
Wow, like somebody needs to take a picture of you.
I've had a couple stop by
That's
so
fantastic.
far. Yeah. Do you shoot as well?
I mean, a little. I'm not.
Yeah.
My son was studying photography.
Oh, really? Where do you study at?
He's at Purchase.
Oh, okay. Amazing. Yeah. Does he still shoot?
I mean, he's a little over it right now, but yeah.
I get it. It ebbs and flows.
Yeah.
Thank you. I'm very tired right now.
I spent like 10 minutes waiting for the flag on 42nd Street to just have the right moment.
Maybe we should try to get rid of it.
We're gonna put this sign next to me.
Excuse me.
Where's your junior brother? I mean, we're gonna keep walking through. Bye, guys. Have a good one.
Like I said, I think that the main goal for this portion of the video of Field Notes is to talk about being able to adapt to the things going on around you. You have to be able to understand that these things are going to be out of your control sometimes. And if you see that there are already about 50 other photographers getting the same exact shots, pivot. Go do something else. Go cover something else. Go look for reactions of people within the crowd. Go insert yourself into the middle of the march. Go do something productive rather than waiting to get that clear shot of Robert De Niro at the start of the parade. Don't just follow the crowd of what's going on. Go make your own photographs of moments that you find interesting. And don't just stick around the herd because that's what you think everybody else is doing. Also, Fishing is very, very helpful. I'm like a Bass Pro Shop ambassador for fishing when it comes to photography. It's a great way to be able to connect with the world around you. You're not constantly moving. It doesn't look like you're getting photographs of people just walking because you're walking past them. It gives you some time to breathe and to notice. So try and implement that, whether you're doing photojournalistic work or whether you're out doing street photography work, which, as a nice little segue, is part 2 to the video. It's a new day now. Hey, it's now Tuesday. This next portion of the video is filmed on Sunday. I've been wanting to do another little take you along while I go out and shoot kind of days just for my book stuff. And my girlfriend Sophie was gonna go meet with a friend for some coffee and lunch and everything like that. And I had already finished up all of my work. So I was like, let's just go out and shoot for the day. I didn't bring you guys along on like a POV just because I didn't really want to focus on taking video stuff. And it wasn't really something that I was interested in at the time. So just like Saturday, I kind of started my day off at Times Square again. This time, instead of walking around everywhere, I would just pick specific points and kind of hang out there for a little bit. I think that this is probably one of the best tactics that any new street photographer can use. I usually do this to start off every time whenever I'm going out to shoot for my book. Instead of just getting right into it, I'll stand still, fish for a little bit, maybe 10-15 minutes, and just kind of be perceptive to the world around me instead of just kind of diving right in there. It really allows you to kind of open up and notice things, and you start to pay more attention. So I kind of took that philosophy and applied that throughout the entire day. After Times Square, I headed over to 6th Ave. There wasn't really a whole lot going on 6th Ave. Again, it's Sunday. The weekends aren't really the time frame for 6th Ave to be super busy just because it's a businessy area and there's a lot of people in navy blue press suits that all look the same and carry around briefcase because they're oh so important. And during the weekends, especially now that the fountain is under construction, it's just not as busy as what it usually is. From 6th Ave, I walked through the Diamond District, which of course is borderline closed on the weekends, and headed over to 5th Avenue, which was much busier. And so I spent a lot of time on 5th Avenue and then headed off into Central Park for a little bit to shoot around there. I walked around Central Park for a little bit and went to go check out the cherry blossoms because I knew that they had started to bloom. Took a couple photographs there. Walked back down to Grand Army Plaza, took a few photographs on the Canon F1, and made my way down 5th Avenue again. From there, I walked around Bryant Park and found out that the Japan Food Festival was going on at that time, and I felt like I was put right back into the middle of the march. It was insanely busy. By this point, I had already worked through all my color film, so I was working with the Canon F1 using black and white before heading back over to the public library where I saw two boxers training together. It was about 3 p.m. at this point, and I knew that Nice Film Club closed at 8 today, so I wanted to get there a little bit earlier so that I could, get all my film developed from the past couple of days. So I hopped back on the train at Grand Central, just thought I'd get another little stretch of the legs, and then hopped on the train, transferred, and then got back into Brooklyn to drop off film at Nice Film Club. And I think that this is going to be it for today's video. I hope that, you got to see some more behind the scenes of what it looks like to be a photojournalist here in the city, as well as some recent work from my book. But I did want to take a brief second and talk about something that I am very proud of. Throughout my entire career, I feel as if I've been constantly developing my own work, and I've spent a lot of time these past few months really developing my educational platforms and building a great foundation with an amazing community that I can't thank you all enough for. But I've never really had a space to showcase all my work before in the ways that I feel are appropriate. For the longest time I was using Canva for my website, and it just didn't really do the job. And last night I stayed up till 3 a.m. in the morning, which is not a bright move, but I was just in it, I guess. And I created my first actual website and portfolio featuring some of my New York City color street photography work, as well as my New York City black and white street photography work, some of the work from my first book in Savannah, Georgia, as well as my earliest work with some of the travels that I made in Florida and California and Kentucky. In addition to that, I've never had the space to showcase my coverage. I was using Visco for my website for a while as well, but it just didn't organize things in ways that I wanted it to, just like Canva wasn't able to. So now there is a full section of all the coverage that I've done this past year so far and last year in a much more organized and professional looking way. In addition to that, there are direct links to the lessons that I teach here on YouTube, as well as the articles I write on Substack and the coordinating posts that go with it on Instagram. It all feels very official, and I'm very proud of it, and I'd love for you to be able to actually take a deep dive into some of my work if you're more interested, what I actually do in terms of what I've been producing for this book and what I do for all of my coverage stuff instead of just relying on Instagram. So I hope that you check it out. I'm very proud of it. I hope that you like it. I hope that you like the work. And I guess really that's it. There's nothing else to really say except thank you all so much for all the support recently. I can't wait to come out with some new lessons this week. And yeah, just get out there, get shooting, and keep moving forward.